I don't know how many of you are in this little polar vortex, but we certainly are here in Colorado. I woke up this morning and it is negative 14 degrees outside currently, not including any wind chill. So it feels like negative 30 something on my weather app. Whoa, it is cold and it just looks cold outside. But the beautiful part is that it came with some snow. And so we may have a white Christmas this year, which is really fun. So all right, so we are on the Is It Worth It week. And yesterday I talked a little bit about discernment and how we're asking the wrong questions when we are saying, can I have this or can't I have this? Or should I have this or shouldn't I have this? That we really want to start practicing discernment. And the best way I think to practice discernment is to ask the question, is it worth it? Does this feel worth it to me to eat? Now, I'm going to mention a couple things going a little bit deeper into that question. My heater just turned off in my office. Let's see if it gets cold real quick. A couple more, going a little deeper into a couple aspects of that question. Is it worth it? Number one, I mentioned quickly yesterday, but I'll go a little bit deeper into today, that if you say to your brain in the face of, cookies or ice cream or chips or Chex Mix or whatever, something that is highly processed, because of the process of the processing, that's strange, because of the processing and the way that processed foods are created, ultra processed foods, we're talking, desserts, cookies, chips, crackers, a lot of the things that are running around on the holidays as kind of treats, right? Because of the processing, the foods spark up or cue certain neural pathways in the brain that always trigger a cue that says, I want that, right? I want that. I want to eat that. It lights up a certain center of our brain that says, yep, give me some of that. Give me more of that. And that when that center lights up in the brain, it sends the cue down to say, hey, you should reach for that. You should have that. You should take that. You should eat that, right? So there is a neuroceptive cue that sends a signal to the brain that says, I would like to eat that. And then we think we make a decision about eating it. But in reality, all of the neural processes had been at work before we decide to grab the cookie, right? So you are being cued by these neural processes to have the cookie, okay? Now, we still have free will. We can still say no to the cookie, but so many of my clients talk about how difficult it is to say no in the face of all of these challenges or all of these temptations. And I'm trying to explain the process as to why. So if we ask the question, do I want it? The answer is always going to be yes in the face of an ultra processed food. If you just go, do I want this? Yep. It's an automatic neural response based on the signaling in the brain in response to ultra processed foods. So we need to flex the muscle and integrate the skill of being able to say no or use discernment to decide, to make an intentional decision truly against what our natural neural processes are telling us. And I say natural loosely because ultra processed food isn't natural, right? So it's now instead of natural, I'm going to use the word automatic. Our automatic response is, yes, I want that in the face of processed foods. And so in order for us to have a different response, we need to pause and be intentional about that. And in order to do that, that takes some practice, right? That takes some skill building to be able to have that pause and be intentional about it. So that's what I meant yesterday when I said, if you ask yourself, do I want it? The answer is always going to be yes in the face of ultra processed foods because of the way that they were created and developed. So being able to use discernment and say, well, is it worth it is a better question. Now, worth it has a different definition for each person, right? So, worth it could mean, well, is it worth me for some people, they have a uncomfortable physical reaction to dairy or something. And most of the time, dairy is not worth it to them, but maybe their favorite pizza is worth it, right? Whatever uncomfortable reaction they're going to have, it's worth it to have that pizza. For some people, worth it means I have very clear goals and I'm working towards those goals. And I know that eating this thing is outside of that goal, but it feels worth it to me. And I'm going to hop right back on my goals tomorrow, right? So the definition of worth it changes, from person to person, and that's okay. What we're trying to decide is, what are the things that feel really worth it to deviate from this moment of arguably, I don't want to use the word well-being, because eating it doesn't make you less well, but deviate from your desires, your goals, your hopes, what you're working towards. If you want to deviate from that, is it worth it? I'm choosing my words very carefully here, because many people can hear what I'm saying and interpret it as restriction or deprivation. And that's not it at all. It's that the way that our brains are designed, all of the junk food, all of the ultra processed foods, all of the French fries, all of the things that are in our face all the time feel really desirable. The temptation there is strong. And if we are just going with the flow, then that temptation is so strong that we eat it, right? And so it requires an intentional look at which decisions feel really worth it to me and which ones not so much. And when I'm looking at things that don't feel worth it, it's things like that cake that doesn't really taste that good, that snack mix that's crunchy, but you don't even really like it that much. That stopping at the half a bowl of Chex Mix because it doesn't feel good when you eat the whole bowl, and then you spend the next hour or two with a stomach ache. Your stomach's so full. That doesn't feel worth it, right? There's a whole lot of reasons why things might not feel worth it, but the takeaway here is that that's a skill that we develop, is looking at something and asking, is this worth it to me to eat it? Now, one of the things that people get scared of when I first introduce this concept is that they'll think everything is worth it, right? Eliza, if I start asking, is it worth it? Yep, it all is. I love it all. I love the junk food. I love it all. And the truth is, once you start really paying attention, it's not actually true. One of the reasons why junk food becomes so prominent in your life is because you put arbitrary rules on it and tell yourself you can't have it, you're not allowed. And that creates an automatic rebellion. So the pendulum swings over this way. You pull it back this way and say, I can't have it. The pendulum swings really far over this way, and your desire for it increases dramatically. If you give yourself permission to eat, I can have whatever I want. And I would like to choose the things that leave me feeling like the happiest and healthiest version of myself, that leave me feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally happy and content and empowered. And once we start to say, I am going to discern the things that leave me feeling this way, you start to get a whole lot of information about the amount of food, the types of food, the timing of food that doesn't leave you feeling empowered physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? So while the bag of popcorn, movie theater popcorn, when you say, do you want it? Immediately the brain says, yes, I do. But if I were to say, okay, does it feel worth it to you? And to me, that bag of movie theater popcorn actually does. I love movie theater popcorn. But this is the second part of the conversation. I know how much feels worth it to me. So it's not only that does the thing feel worth it to you? Then we stay connected and say, how much of it feels worth it for you? When does it feel like a good time to stop? Now that skill is challenging, because the ultra processed food is, as I mentioned earlier, firing and wiring certain neural pathways in your brain that make it very challenging to override. When you have that food and you're tasting it, and there's the mouthfeel and there's the taste and there's the way the salt, sugar, fat comes together, it is pinging like a pinball machine, all of the senses that say, keep eating more of it. It's bypassing your satiety cues. All kinds of things are going on from a neural wiring perspective. That's pretty unnatural, right? Because of the way the food is designed. And so to stay connected to yourself in that process and say, I think I've had enough. I will not like the way, this is where what's called delay discounting comes in, where you are skilled at saying, I am going to stop the positive emotions that I'm feeling right now for the sake of the positive emotions that I want to feel later. Right. And so it takes skill and practice to say, I have had enough of this movie theater popcorn, even though everything in my brain is saying, continue to eat more of it. I've had enough of it because I don't want to feel the negative ramifications that I know I feel when I eat too much. Now, that is a skill of discernment that is challenging, that takes a while to develop. Being able to stop sort of midstream and say, this is enough, even though it keeps calling to me, because I don't want to feel what it feels like later when I've eaten the whole bag. Now, I know when I've gotten into the movie theater popcorn, that there's a certain stopping point that if I keep going, I'm not going to feel well physically. I'm not going to feel well emotionally. I'm not going to feel well mentally. Movie theater popcorn, by all accounts, it's not good for you. That's okay, right? I'm okay with it not being good for me. I really, really love it. But if I eat the whole bag, if I go beyond the feeling of being comfortably full, right, then it starts to negatively impact me, and I don't deserve that. So when I choose, it's worth it for me to eat the movie theater popcorn, I also stay connected and say, when have I had enough? When will this go beyond feeling good? Even though all of the senses are telling me to keep going, I want to stop intentionally because I deserve to feel good later versus bad later. And I don't deserve to deal with that feeling of feeling bad. So because I care so much about myself, I'm going to stop now. That's a challenging skill, but one that you can start practicing right now. Now, look, it is a difficult time of year to start practicing it because of all of the temptations. And it's also kind of the perfect timing, right? Right now is the perfect timing to start practicing. Now, I keep using the words practicing on purpose because it does take practice. It is a skill that does need development. And you will not get it right the first time. You may not get it right the 50th time. But if you keep practicing, does this feel worth it to me? How much of it do I want to have in order to feel good later when I'm done eating it? Now, tomorrow I'm going to talk about the shame and guilt piece, but today I wanted to really break down the biochemical reactions in the brain when you're faced with ultra processed foods, when you have started eating those ultra processed foods, and what it does to the brain. It is going to continue to cue you to keep eating it. It's going to shut down the signals to tell you to stop. So it requires an intentional override of those cues to say, I know that I don't want to feel that way later, so I am going to stop now, even though everything around me is telling me to keep going. Okay. That is the skill of discernment, and discernment in the form of, does this feel worth it to me? All right. Let me know what questions you have about this skill and how to practice. Tomorrow, I'll wrap it up with the shame and guilt piece, and we will be wrapped up for this week of Healthy for the Holidays. Y'all, the wait list for the shift is getting full. So if you're not already on it, please jump on the wait list for the shift. If I haven't mentioned it already, I'm going to start talking about the shift a lot over the next few weeks because we start on January 21st. It is now a 6-month program. That is what everybody keeps asking me for. Eliza, can it please be longer? Can it please be longer? And now it is. It is 6 months versus 3 months, which is fantastic. The container is so immersive and full of everything you need really to make a complete transformation with your body and your weight or any struggles you're having with food. And I'm so excited about it. So if you're not already on the Shift waitlist, please, please, please head to my website, elizakingsford.com. Super, super easy to jump on there so that you'll know as soon as the doors open. I imagine this round might fill up really quickly. So that would be exciting. I hope to see you in it, and we'll see you tomorrow.